I always like to get rusty pieces of steel and then make them into something cool. This probably was a really killer piece of mosaic, but I don't know what it is now because it's all crusty and rusty. I'll have an image or an idea in my mind, like something I just want to start playing with. I might have sketched it out once or twice. And then I'll start off going, well, I'll make it an integral. No, I'll make it like this. Maybe I'll do this. And then I end up with something that's just more and more fun as I go along. So what I'm doing right here is the end of this bar is a little mangled. I don't know if this is where it was pinched off at the, at the factory. This is a drop from a big roll of steel that is used to manufacture springs for Toyota Tundras, and not Tundras I don't think, but I know they use them for the Tacomas and for the 4Runners. And so this is just basically scrap metal. But I didn't like the way it looked, so it was going to form a cold shred or something. So what I did was hot cut it to center. It's called cut to center. It's a technique. I also learned this from Brian Brazil, from watching him in his videos. He's got some great videos. And so I ended up cutting to center, making a point. And it was a little aggravating here at this part because everything's wobbling around. But eventually I get it cut off, and you'll notice that I'm not hammering straight over top of the hardy, of the cut, the cut-off hardy. When I get to the end, I'm hitting it off to the side, and I knock that little divot off, that little slug off, and then I have a point. So I go back into forge and make a point real easy at that point. Point, point, point. I'm spending most of my time forging on the power hammer, and because I'm thinking about how I want this knife to come out as we go along, I had this set up. It was like almost looked like it wanted to be a wakizashi, at this one point. I was just like, ooh, I got it. I had the width of it, and then the near the tip was about 70% of the, so 30% smaller, but just a nice little taper to set up to do a wakizashi. But then I was like, I just didn't have that picture in my head. I had this double edge curved blade in my mind. So that's what I went with. So I took that out and I started working the primary edge first. And then as I progress, as I go along, you see me start working that back edge. It's a lot shorter, it's different. And it is somewhat of an integral construction, meaning that you can see this big transition between where the blade and where the handle is. And I'll be leaving that in there, I think. We'll see when we get to the grinding part, and I'm sure you'll hear me talk about it. So that's the idea, This is a little trickier because I'm just kind of going in whatever direction I feel like the steel seems to want to go into. I'm just sculpting and having fun. I'm enjoying the process, whether I succeed at it or fail at it. Most of the time, I am going with a pattern. I have drawn it, sketched it, considered the idea. Does it work? Will it function? I've made prototypes out of wood, and then finally decided on an end design. And then when I'm forging, I'm just going straight there. So it goes way faster, and I'm directly trying to get to a shape. I didn't do that this time. I just had fun. Basically watching me just forming it out. To show you, it's still a bit warm. So this was made out of the round bar of 1085 Hitachi. You can see it's like that and like this, and there's a back edge, and I'll show you. The taper is going in every direction on this thing. So now you can see that. Yeah. It's fun. It's fun to make stuff like this. It just allows me to possibly go in a different direction that I haven't been in a while. Sometimes it's kind of funny, sometimes I'll design something and I'll go back and see a book. I had sketchbooks going all the way back to high school, which was in the 90s, the early 90s. And I'll see it as I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I was like, oh, I already did that one time. But back in those days, I couldn't make the knife. I could just dream about it. And now I can make the knife that I'm dreaming about, which is nice. It just takes practice and time. So that is the fun part about this whole process, is getting a piece of steel and forging it into something that works. Now, out of 10 times, no, let's use a better number. I don't like to. Out of 13 times I do this, like 7 of them are successful, and the rest of them they go into this chair. I'm working on a chair. I'm welding all of the knives that don't really work out to it, so it's like the Game of Thrones, you know, the iron chair. So that's what the piece is like this. It's just artistic expression. I'm just making something. Now the other part is functional. I wanted to make something that was like more primal, you know, something like I'm forging this. I've done some big double-edged recurves that are fun to forge, and some of them get finished and some of them don't. But this piece I'll finish, so you'll see the second half where we finish this piece. So we'll heat treat it. That means we'll harden it, temper it. I'm thinking I want to do kind of a wrap on the handle, but that may change. I may do the something different. Maybe we'll do pins and do that flint knapped looking handle. It'll be comfortable. Anyway, a little bit of grinding, some minimal grinding, not too much, not too carried away on the grinding part. But I appreciate you watching. My whole goal here is to just inspire you to make. I want you to be able to get out there and forge a blade and have fun doing it, and don't be afraid to ruin it, because you probably will, and that's not a big deal. Experiment. You know, I have very different ideas about design that I like, and you know, I voiced my opinion about that. And so there's certain things I want to put on a knife and some things I don't. This one, I may sharpen the back edge. I don't know, just thinking. But we'll see what happens. So keep watching, subscribe, share, and like, and leave some comments. I really like to hear. I try and answer as many as possible, so don't be surprised if you get an answer. The live feeds we're doing, I'm having fun with those, and I hope you are too. So we're going to keep doing the live feeds. This week we won't have one because we're going to Nashville to the Tactical Knife Invitational. That ought to be fun. I'm not in it. I'm not setting up at it. But we're going to go see some great makers and some good friends. And I hope you guys have a great whatever day it is, whatever time you're living in. I use a time travel device sometimes. And so some of you know about that. I can usually go backwards, but I can't go forwards. That's the weird part. So can't go forwards, can go backwards, but don't touch anything because you might screw it all up. So anyway, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, this episode brought to you by rusty pieces of steel that I find in my shop.